Meadow Creek High School, Test Administration and Security. Accountability and Assessment, 2015-2016. Purpose of standardized tests. Standardized assessments are secure tests administered to large groups of students for the purpose of measuring academic achievement and or comparing members of a cohort. All students have the opportunity to demonstrate what they know and are able to do. Standardized accommodations provide equal access for students with disabilities and students with language barriers. Prevention requires protocols and planning. The best way to prevent inappropriate testing practice is to help everyone involved become aware of what is good practice and what is not. Everyone concerned with the accuracy of data on student achievement needs to help spread the word about what constitutes appropriate and ethical test preparation and administration. Georgia Professional Standards Commission Code of Ethics. Standard 4. An educator shall exemplify honesty and integrity in the course of professional practice. Honesty. Unethical conducts include, but is not limited to, falsifying, misrepresenting, or omitting information regarding the evaluation of students. Standard 7. An educator shall comply with state and federal laws and state school board policies related to the confidentiality of student and personal records, standardized test materials, and other information. Confidential information. Unethical conduct includes, but is not limited to, violation of confidentiality agreements related to standardized testing, including copying or teaching identified test items, publishing or distributing test items or answers, discussing test items, violating local school system or state directions for the use of tests or test items, etc. Standard 9. An educator shall file reports of a breach of one or more of the standards in the Code of Ethics for educators, child abuse, or any other required report. Required reports. Unethical conduct includes, but is not limited to, failure to make a required report of a violation of one or more standards of the Code of Ethics for educators of which they have personal knowledge as soon as possible, but no later than 90 days from the date the educator became aware of an alleged breach, unless the law or local procedures required reporting sooner. Standard 11. Testing. An educator shall administer state-mandated assessments fairly and ethically. Testing. Unethical conduct includes, but is not limited to, number 1, committing any act that breaches test security, and number 2, compromising the integrity of the assessment. Acts that breach test security, confidentiality, possessing unauthorized copies of state tests, copying or taking notes on test items, revealing in any manner any part of secure, copyrighted tests to students or others, failing to inventory test materials upon receipt. Acts that breach test security and confidentiality, discussing test items or answers, using secure test items and prompts for instructional purposes, reviewing answers to test questions. Acts that compromise the integrity of the assessment. Failing to provide or attending required training, failing to provide state-approved accommodations, providing accommodations not in an approved plan, failing to communicate needed accommodations for a student, reading parts of the test to a student except where indicated in written plans or directions. Acts that compromise the integrity of the assessment. Failing to provide an appropriate testing environment, failing to monitor testing environment, failing to provide or ensure that proper tools are used during testing, failing to follow the established testing schedule and order of test administration, acts that compromise the integrity of the assessment, failing to ensure students are given the correct form and or grade level, failing to follow the directions specified in the manual, allowing students too much or too little time, coaching students during the test, interpreting, explaining, or paraphrasing test items, providing answers to test questions, acts that compromise the integrity of the assessment, erasing or altering student answers, erasure of stray marks that would interfere with scoring is appropriate, failure to ensure accurate completion of student information, discouraging students from putting forth optimal effort, encouraging student absenteeism in order to avoid testing, reclassifying students for the purpose of avoiding state tests.